So all you on the Mark tribe who've been listening to this for a while, you're used to my accent, but my accent is not as cool as this guy. It's Hernan Rey. Hernan, welcome to the show. How are you doing? And by the way, folks, he's from Buenos Aires, Argentina. How are you?
Mark, very good, very good. Ready for this. Thank you for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here. And I don't know about my accent.
Okay, are you kidding? You and I were talking off the top of the air, folks. I'm dating myself. A good friend of Hernan's is a good friend of mine, former teammate, roommate of mine at Columbus State, Martin Leonardi. So we've got a thread that goes way back there. But before we get to this stuff, Hernan, for the folks who don't know you, and you're well known on the tour, you work for ESPN, you teach a number of golfers, including Emiliano Grillo. Tell the folks from around the world a little bit about you, please.
Well, as you say, I was born in Argentina. I came to the United States, went to Alabama to play some golf at Jacksonville State. I got a scholarship there. Then I played professionally for 13 years. Didn't do too good. I mean, I was a decent player, but
you played all over the world. I mean, you've been South Africa, you were over in Europe, you played all over South America, huh?
Yes, I play in over 50 countries, so you can say that I made bogeys everywhere in the world. I played European Tour for a few years, but I wasn't good enough, I guess, to make a living playing golf. That's when I decided to start with the TV, with ESPN, commentating in Spanish, and I started coaching, which is I figured out it was my real passion. I love what I do right now. So I felt like almost my playing years were like the best school for me to be able to share my knowledge now with my students.
Well, there's no doubt, because I look at your stable of clients and you got players from young Sophie Garcia, who I thought was, she's tremendous, played on the Arnold Palmer Cup team for me, Brandon Stone, South African, Fabrizio Zanotti, and then of course Nicholas Echeverria, who's a tremendous player, and Emiliano, Rafa Campos, Chris Ventura. Now look at all these golfers, and they're more. But the beauty I love about the folks that you teach, if you didn't tell me you were teaching them, I couldn't see like everyone swinging the same way, which sometimes gets me a bit concerned. But you teach golfers how to play and not just how to swing better, and that intrigues me about you.
Yes, I not all those are some players that I'm not coaching. I'm not still coaching, but you mentioned all the ones that I did work, and some of them I'm still working with them. But yeah, when you look at their swings. I'm not a model teacher. I play, long enough to understand that there's no one way to play good golf. I don't believe in only one technique. I mean, you need to go to the top of the best players in history or the top 50 players today. None of them swing alike. They all have their own personalities, I would say, with their swing. And that's kind of my system is that early when I stopped playing and I started coaching, I started trying to identify what was it that all the good players have in common, in their swings. And those are what I call my fundamentals, obviously what you can teach everybody. But then I was very intrigued on trying to see what were the differences that they have and try to understand, call it those matchups today. They call it the functional matchups. Why Rory can play with a strong grip, with a flatter backswing, and why Scotty Scheffler plays with more of an open club face and a more upright swing, and why do they make them work? Because today you see at the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 players in the world, they all swing differently, but they were very efficient with what they do. So that's kind of what I try to do.
I want to ask you this because I'm going back to college now, and you think of young South African folks, and because we played on Kikuyu grass, we all got sort of pretty golf swings, and you hit the ball with not a lot of divot because of the surface. And then all the Argentinians I played with, you guys are master shot creators. It's like everyone's kind of got their own swing, if you will. It's very artistic, lots of flair, lots of shot shaping, high, low draws, fades. Is this sort of how you guys learn the game down there? Because it's fascinating to me.
Yes, I remember that Charlie Epps, Angel Cabrera's caddy, went there to an Argentinian tournament, and he said, "Man, you cannot feel one swing thought in the whole driving range." So we are not a very technical kind of country in those regards. A lot of our best players came from being a caddy. so a humble background. That is changing right now. There's a lot of kids that are coming more to college, and from that, obviously, you're getting better instructors that are learning much more about the golf swing. So that is changing. But yeah, we're a country in general, I would say we have a lot of good ball strikers. Unfortunately, the greens in our home, they're not perfect. So we have a few good putters, but in general, we are recognized for our ball striking, and our guts to close tournaments and stuff like Cabrera used to do.
You're no kidding. I would then counter to that you guys all hit the ball pretty long down there as well, which I mean, well, look, every golfer I've been around from Argentina, you got these silky looking swings, but the ball travels fast and goes a long way.
Yes. And that comes from intention. I feel like, trying to compete, trying to swing faster without really realizing how. I have a very interesting, you mentioned Brandon Stone when I used to coach him. There's a South African player you probably heard, and I might pronounce it wrong, but I know it's Wilco Nienaber.
Yeah. He can smash.
Yes. He can go long without swinging long. And I asked him, I was intrigued on one dinner, I asked him, how do you hit it that long? What do you do? Because you don't swing hard. And he told me that he was a kid at 14, 15 years old. He didn't have a driver. So all he could hit was a 3-wood. So he started swinging as hard as he could, trying to catch up with his buddies. And then he realized the ball was spinning too much. So he was going too high. So he started de-lofting the club at impact. And then he realized he had too much spin. So he realized he had to swing up on it. So I don't need to explain to you. If you have the intention of going as long as you can, reducing loft, creating this spin loft, kind of when he got a driver, the guy is hitting it 340, 350 on the air. So I think in Argentina, there's a lot of that. We don't know exactly how to do it, but you got a lot of guys that are swinging hard and hitting long way too.
I think, and this is two teachers talking to each other with a whole bunch of folks watching and listening. I believe that necessity is the mother of invention. And talk about kids coming over here, and American kids go to college, and Argentinians, South Africans, Australians, lots of Swedish come here to the States. I think at times, perhaps, people get overcoached, maybe, and they don't go
100%.
Don't go out there and just sort of learn to play the game like you were talking about. You agree?
100%. There is overcoaching. I have a junior academy, and a lot of times I love to go to my players and I wouldn't say figure it out yourself, but I give them enough time for them to hit balls and find their own feels. You know what I'm saying? Here's what I want you to do. I love to tell them what, but don't tell them how.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's important because when you're under the gun in a tournament, you got to trust your own feels, and each player has his own little feels that they can depend on when the pressure is on. And I agree completely. Sometimes there is overcoaching. In my opinion, I say that golf is a very technical game, but it will never be so technical that it would not depend on timing. And what I mean with this is, I call it the macro move and the micro moves, right?
Yeah.
And the macro move is that 7-iron that you how your body moves in general to hit a 7-iron, call it 170, a straight shot. But then you play golf with the micro moves, with the little adjustments. That 7-iron 170 straight has nothing to do when you go to a golf course and now you have 167, wind off the left, the ball is above your feet. You got to read the Lycos in the first cut. And you cannot go left because now you're chipping with the wind helping and blah, blah, blah. So now it becomes an 8-iron that you got to play on your back of your foot with a high, shoulder trying to hit a draw into the wind, blah, blah, blah. People don't train that enough. Sometimes we focus too much on the macro and not enough on the micro moves.
Amen, brother. That's what I said when I sort of watch the guys that you've worked with, and they all play the game. Along those lines, I mean, look, here's the shadow side of it, because you've played the game at a high level. I've played it somewhat high. We've both been good teachers. Now we talk about golf for a living, so there's a parallel, right?
Yes.
And so this is all good news, and I'm sure golfers and parents and kids are listening going, wow, that's what Hernan says there's right. But I'm wanting to say there's a shadow side to this that people don't want to talk about. And the shadow side is this discovery, this learning about the micro moves and stuff. This stuff comes with failure. And when you're trying these new things, Yeah, there you go. It's not the easiest job in the world. So I want you to talk about it, motivate some, because you're going to go through your lumps to get to where you eventually go.
Yeah, and that, I mean, with parents, it's amazing. I always say that failure is part of the process. It's not, it's part of success. It's not the opposite of success. And parents are so worried about kids, not losing or how they feel about losing. And I think this is a game. I mean, I might be wrong. I did my research while preparing for ESPN, but I think Jack Nicklaus, if I'm not wrong, won 17% of the tournament he entered, and then we're talking about the best player ever. If you win 5% of the time on golf, you're a genius. If you win once a year, you're probably top 20 in the world on the PGA Tour. So I think how you take defeat in golf is key. It's a game that we play more times. There's more times that we're not happy with how we play than we are happy with how we play, and I think how you take that is key. So I wouldn't agree with you. I feel like parents are too focused on winning the next Saturday, and they're not focused on the important things, having a great attitude, have good routines, developing speed and dynamics, being mentally strong, attitude. Wow. I mean, how much can we talk about attitude? So I think those are the things I focus on the long term with kids more than trying to win next Saturday,
Okay, folks. This typically happens where I get completely off topic, and I'm off topic with Hernan right now. We're going to move back.
No, you can go ahead.
One more thing, though. I think, and I want your take, please, that you've got to be of the mindset to welcome the failure, because that failure you're learning, and then also it's a place where you also start to realize that golf is basically at its root a game of recovery. Because you've been out there, you're never hitting perfect shots all the time. Half the time, you're playing macro, you're recovering, you're hitting different shots.
Yes.
Oh, it's perfect. Yes.
And first you got to train that. First you got to train those things. It's not about you record Rory McIlroy's swing on the day he shoots 64 and the day he shoots 74. Both swings, the macro moves looks exactly the same if you put them on camera. It's a little micro. The timing of the hands. These guys are squaring the club face at a 1 degree. 1 second in a clock is 6 degrees. These guys are squaring at 1 degree at 100 miles per hour. So they're, it's the micro that goes away. But like you say, it's just dealing with failure. I think is key. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news for folks, but it is true. And, I think oftentimes that failure, as much as what it sucks at the time, if you're in the headspace afterwards, to really look at it and go, well, maybe that wasn't my swing. And it was that situation that Hernan said where I've got the ball below my feet, the wind's in off the left, there's water down the left.
Yes.
That situational mistake and not necessarily my swing that I didn't swing properly.
And let me add something to what you say. I have a lot of kids that are on their 20s, 30s, and they're not finding success early in their careers, and they want to quit, and they're getting depressed, or they just see themselves as a failure. It's very hard for them to separate, the person from the player. You start failing at golf, now you feel like you are not a good human being, or your worth is nothing. But going back to what you said, I remember talking to Jim Furyk, and I say I admire your passion. Guys like Phil Mickelson, Jim Furyk, Bernard Langer, guys are under 50, 60, still playing. And I say, what's the key? And he said, you got to enjoy the grind.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you say. Enjoying the grind, enjoying the failure, seeing failure as something that is going to move me a step closer to success, and not something that kind of hurts me and hinders my confidence,
All right, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me writing nonstop. So I bet you listening are taking lots of notes. All right. And we haven't even got to the material yet. The brief here for people listening and watching is I texted Hernan. I'm like, come on. He said, sure. Then I'm like, please, I just want to sort of take a player from the driving practice range to the first tee and through to the green, just with some of your golf insights, because you put a wonderful video tip on Instagram about bunker play that I was like, this is and you said, well, yeah, I want to definitely do with that. And you wanted to talk about almost practicing in a way that you get the stuff to the course before we get to the course. So I'm going to let you have it and say, all right, yeah, advise someone who's on the range, who's, you know, preparing for a round of golf, whatever. What insights would you share for them, please?
I go back to the macro and the micro. I feel like you train your macro on the range, you know, but you play by the feel and the micro moves and the timing of squaring the club face. And I feel like people get confused with that. You know, when you're working on a new move on your elbow, that's going to feel weird. It's going to, I mean, if let's say you're turning more on your swing and you want to get your elbow more in front, that's not only going to feel weird, it's going to change your perception of where you are in space. It's going to change the timing on when you square the club face. And you're going to lose your micro. You're going to lose the timing of squaring the club face. That doesn't mean that the lesson or the information they're giving to you is wrong, you know, but it means that you should be working on that, maybe indoor, maybe without hitting a golf ball. You're just changing that swing, that technique, that general technique. You're trying to change these adjustments. Okay, in 2 weeks, I want you to be turning more with your shoulders and having the elbow in front. I don't care how you hit the ball in the process, you know, yeah. But when you go to a golf course, you gotta be able to summarize that to one feel. And maybe if you go and play after 3 days, that swing didn't change enough to make a difference. But if you go and play thinking about the elbow and thinking about turning, I guarantee you that you're gonna play worse. You know, even though the information was right, you were playing thinking about the macro and not about the micro moves, you know, and just reacting to the ball. So there's a little drill that I like to do with my players, call it the 5-ball drill. In the first 2, the player has to focus 100% on technique, and I don't care how they hit the ball. So basically, they're thinking about the steeper shoulder turn, and they're thinking about where the elbow is. So they're very aware of where the body is going, not even reacting to the ball and trying to make contact. Okay. So they hit that. That's the video I'm gonna upload in Instagram, because that's the one that is gonna look good, but he's gonna shoot 200 if he goes and tries to play doing that, right? Because he's not gonna make contact with the ball. It's like you juggling balls. This is the micro move, and then I ask you to move your leg in a certain way. The minute you start focusing on your leg, the balls are gonna drop. Yeah, right, because you're not going to have the timing. So the next 2 balls, you're going to have to summarize that to just one feel. So we're going to go 50% technical, 50% just feel or timing, call it. So in those 2 balls, you know, the players are going to, now the swing is not going to look as good as the first 2, because technically, while you're thinking about hitting the ball and squaring the club face, obviously, you're not going to focus as much on this, so it's not going to look as good as the other one. But at least you're going to be able to center contact, you know, and hit a decent shot. And the last one is called the money ball, which I wanted to go full focus, full routine, hit it as it would be a tournament ball. You know, that one is probably today going to have only 5% of the change you're doing. But I want you just to go and hit the shot. You know, just react and hit the shot. Well, hopefully in 3 days that change is going to be 10%. In a week, it's going to be 20, and so on and on. But the important thing is that you never go and try to play golf with your new swing or swinging on or thinking on technique. You know, you never should be those 2 first balls.
That is brilliant in how simple it is. It's genius, honestly, if you think about it, because there is this, you know, I've talked to everybody. Great players, Tiger Woods. He's like, it took me a year and a half to work my first swing change to a place where it felt comfortable. But you've still got to go and find a way to compete. Yes. So I love the way you package that. And then I love the way too, how you say, look, you know, 1% per day improvement is a good thing. You're not going to go from like 0 to hero overnight.
No, I mean, you don't change a motor pattern in 3 days, you know. Now, one thing that I learned is you gotta, as a coach, we gotta find, I always say that I have 1 what and 5 or 6 how. Okay. And in that is where, being a player for so many years, I try to find the feels that the player can accelerate the process of the change. I can talk, and we as players always try to share our feels for the change. And to me, the key is trying to give them several options, or actually I move them on the right position and I ask them, how does it feel? How do you feel this move? And I might think that I don't know, he's shallow in the shaft with the rotation of the forearms. And for him, maybe it's external rotation of the right arm or whatever it is that he's feeling. But it's our job to talk their language. And that's why, for me, finding the how with their feels is key to accelerate that process. But it will always take time.
What you said there, I'll never forget. It was back in New Orleans many, many years ago when Justin Rose was still working with Sean Foley. And Justin had been playing great, was struggling. Foley, he's changed over the years. I think he's a little less technical.
Yes.
And they were trying something, and because Justin wins in New Orleans, and I interview him afterwards. And he said, I said to Foley, I'm like, yeah, all the stuff you're showing me and saying to me and stuff, that's right. But my feels are sacred. He goes, and so when I play, I want to feel these things in my swing. And so they found common ground. Next thing he goes and wins. So, I mean, I guess I'm just clarifying and agreeing with what you say with Justin's anecdote.
Yes, 100%. So you got to find that blend where I'm seeing what I want to see in your swing with your technique, but it feels right to you and you find a way that you can do it. So I'm going to keep on giving you options. And for some players, it's an image. For some players, it's me moving them. It's a move. For some players, it's finding what part of the body is doing it. For some players, they're all different and they all learn in a different way. For some players, it's a ball flight.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, every movement comes from an intention. And sometimes the intention will tell him, okay, give me a low fade. You're going to get him more on top of the ball and swing him farther left or something.
Yeah, I'm busy writing a manuscript right now. And one of the things is, if you're making changes, you'll see the ball fly differently.
Yes.
And so, seeing the ball move differently is a thing. So that brings me to a question. So that was the work on the range. Now, here's us loosening up on the driving range. Do you sort of advocate to folks hit certain clubs, hit shapes, see what you got on the day, or what do you say to folks?
You have different kind of players. I got a video, I remember, on the President's Cup, cheering Hartford International team. But it was sunburns, with one of those impact balls, and he had a form grip, and he was kind of drilling before going to the golf course. So that's a guy that likes to take that feel that the drill gives him, or the exercise gives him, to the course. And right behind him, there was Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth, as you know, is a very creative player. He's an artist.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think there's no right or wrong. There's players that like to be more technical and they can play on that 50-50, on that drill I was telling you, 50 technical, 50, just let it go. And then there are players that just go to the range and try to find what I have today. That's another key. Play with what you have. If you have a fade that day, hit the fade. Good players, they understand their body and their ball flight very early during the day. On the range, they know what they have, and they try to do the best that they can with what they have that day. So that's key to me.
Yeah, the golf round I made this mistake. I hadn't played golf for a while the other day, and my first time out, and I had a different swing thought on every hole. And as you would expect, it was a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
It was a terrible day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because we learn through experience. I got my camera swing, in which I do all the moves, that they look good, and the swing looks, I wouldn't say perfect because there's no perfect swing, but it looks in balance. It looks like a nice swing, right? And then I have my real swing. My real swing has certain peculiarities, but my micro is so trained through all these years to adjust or compensate, if you want to say, or to, like a little matchup, that I play better with my bad swing, with my bad macro, because my macro is so polished through years and years and years and years of squaring the club face from that bad macro that, I make it work. Now, the new swing is awesome in camera, and if I could have the time to train it, it'd probably be better, but right now I don't have the time to do that. So I can record a video with a great macro move, but I play better with my ugly swing.
You have just, I think, given the gold to everybody listening to us, all the club players, because what Hernan says there is so right, in my opinion. You can have your micro swing, and you could work on something, but remember, when the chips are down there, you've got to get the ball to the hole in as few strokes as possible.
Yes, 100%, Mark.
Okay, let's get there eventually. See, I'm eventually here now. Right, we're on the And this is an offshoot of this awesome bunker tip that you gave. It was in Spanish, which I found so romantic and so pretty to listen. Folks can find it on your social media, but let's do this. On the tee, and I've been here for a long time. Quick tip to, hit the driver more squarely, find the fairway more, whatever you feel like, off the tee.
Okay, let's go. Can I get up now?
Yes, show me.
Okay, so the guys in your YouTube channel, they can see something.
Yeah.
And you want them in English or in Spanish?
English, please.
So you want to go with the irons? You want to go what kind of?
Let's go.
Tell me.
Let's go with the driver first. Something off the tee.
Okay, driver is a club that most people, struggle with. They slice a lot, and what I like to tell them, I got my old Persimmon wood driver here.
Yeah.
Talking about being a romantic. But to me, the most important moves that a player have to learn, and this is where people struggle with slicing so much, is understanding why you're coming over the top. And there's two things that are key. The first one is the early shift to the left. A lot of people have that little casting. Well, the golf swing of a professional golfer lasts almost half the time than the amateur swing does.
Yes.
And that has to do because the professional golfer, when the left arm is parallel to the ground, call it the L position on the backswing, it's already moving his weight or his pressure to the left. There is a short period of time in which the arms are moving this way, finishing the backswing, and the pressure shift is already moving to the left. Yeah. Some guys do it very early, like John Rahm. Some guys, like Dustin Johnson, doesn't do it as early. But I can promise you that there is a short period of time in which the club is already in this position called the top of the backswing, and the players are already moving left. Mm-hmm. So the one thing I like people to learn is how to do that separation of pressure and mass, call it, and start stepping early in transition. Because a lot of guys, they try to create these hands leading by manipulating the club. And that's poison, because that happened as a reaction to a movement. So very simple. I just want them to start swinging the arms to the right. And when the arms is going to the right, just stepping on the left. So it's almost like you have a giant paintbrush, and I want you to start doing this. I bet you that most golfers cannot do this. I'm going with my pressure on my feet to the right and my hands are left. And then the minute they're coming this way, I'm going to pressure on my left and go opposite. So it's going to be like a dance, right and left, right and left. So it's like a change of pressure, what changed the direction of my arms, okay? It's like a dance. It's called a swing. That's why it's called a swing on the golf swing, right?
I love that too, because you talk about that sort of stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've lined up a line of balls in front of golfers, in front of them, 3 or 4.
Yes.
Okay, just swing back and forth and start stepping and hitting those balls there. And people get themselves tangled because it's like, well, step with my right leg, and there's just no relationship between the shift, as you say. And I love that little backwards and forwards thing. I think that's a wonderful way to feel, not just to feel a sequence of it, but also to feel kind of, when and where you are in space without a golf club.
Yes. Then you're going to add the golf club, and you're going to do simple swings. When you're going back, the change of direction happens because I shift my weight or my pressure to the left foot. So now you're going to start feeling how the club loads the angle of my right wrist, right? So I'm going to go this way, and now you're going to start kind of brushing the ground and start feeling how the change of direction is what loads my wrist. There's nothing here that I'm manipulating or pulling with my hands. It just happens as a reaction of what my body's doing. All right. After you do that, you grab a longer club, and I call this P3 to P8, if you know, but it would be a 3/4 backswing to an abbreviated follow through. Like I want your club to be here hip height, on the follow through. But it's going to happen as a reaction of my change of direction. It makes sense? I'm going to feel like when the club is going back, I'm already shifting. I load my wrist, and then I have an abbreviated follow through. So it's going to go from 3/4 backswing to half a follow through.
For the For the folks, sorry, Hernan, for the folks listening on audio only, if you go to YouTube, you can see this. But basically, what he just did was set up to some medium iron, little halfway back swing, with that shift and allowing the shift to load the wrist coming down, and just clipped off the follow through. And it was the most pretty little strike that was rhythmic, and it didn't look like you were trying to hit the ball. It's more like you were allowing the club to move in concert with the movement of your body.
Yes, and the other day I heard John Ram talk about a drill that to me is the next step on this. Once you can do this and you go shift direction and can compress the ball, John Ram was saying that he tries to do this drill in which he tries to hit, let's say, a 9-iron, his full distance with half a backswing.
Okay.
So basically, he's going to go all the way just to here, but now it's his body the ones who has to lead the transition and accelerate the club. So it's a nice drill that people can do to understand how does it feel for the body to be leading, instead of casting. How does it feel to let the pressure shift happen very early? So try to hit your full distance with a half a backswing. Obviously, a lot of times you're going to feel like you are not coordinated, and you might hit a few that might go to the right. But I'll guarantee you're going to start loading your wrist better. You're going to set the club, and you're going to start understanding how to rotate through the shot and compress the ball better, because that was going to give you some shaft lean also and some compression.
One more question about that great exercise. I love the exercise. Builds rhythm, builds power, builds timing, builds everything. Good low point location. When you're doing this, because you are shifting as the mass of the club's going back, you're shifting forward. How still are you, or stable are you trying to keep your cabeza, your head, throughout this throughout this motion? Are you trying to keep your head still?
Yes. On this little drill, going 3/4 to have a follow through, I try to keep my head still. The truth is, in transition, if we go to a full swing, there is a lateral shift. The body's going to move to the left. When I contact the ball, my weight is basically 90% of my left foot. But the head, I would say there's some guys that when in transition, they lower the head a little bit. Mm-hmm. If you have a flatter shaft and the correct matchups, I don't mind that. But for a high handicapper, I will tell them to try to keep the head still and not to move forward when they do that. I agree there.
And for the less advanced golfer, I'd probably just go with the ball in a lower tee when they're doing this, yes?
Yes, 100%. Always a good idea, especially when you work on your macro moves. Like, I don't care how you hit the balls, and anything that is going to help you with the timing to square the club face and hit it in the center. I think that every time you're working on technique, you should have the ball on a tee. I would agree with that.
Fantastico. Okay. So that's for the driver. This very much work with the irons too. Do you have something to strike the irons well?
Well, if I might say, I add the same thing, because this will work very well for the irons. It's actually more of an iron kind of drill than a driver. But the second thing that I see, once is the shift doesn't happen soon enough. The second one is the dissociation of the lower part with the shoulders, like hips with shoulders, right? All bad players, if I put my club here on my hips and I put another club on the top, basically they go together with the hips. They turn hips and shoulders, and on the way down, they turn hips and shoulders all together too. There's no dissociation of the hips with the shoulders, right? Obviously, if I do that, my club is going to come over the top. Good players, they not only shift early, but they also learn very early in their careers to start the downswing with the hips or the lower body, right? That creates, if I'm now turning my hips and not turning my shoulders in transition, that creates this little lateral bend. It kind of compresses all this right side of my thorax, and that's what allow the players to be able to be open at impact, but with the club coming from the inside. And that's, to me, those are the two moves that I think that people struggle the most: the early shift and being able to create a lateral bend to be able to swing the club from the inside by being open with the body at impact.
I'm so glad you said that. And again, for the audio listener, what Hernan was doing, they had a shaft across basically the front of his shoulders, a shaft across the pelvis, and the bad golfer turns the shaft back and down at the same speed. And the good golf turns back, and then the lower body, the pelvis, turns earlier than the shoulders do. And I'm glad you talk about this, because if you turn on the internet nowadays, you'll see basically two things, or three. Early extension, it's from the devil. You better shallow the club or else you won't be able to play. And
yes.
You've got to be rotating. And I can't tell you how many club golfers I see that are trying to turn back to the target, and that club face is so far open they can't find the golf ball again.
100%. Well, if your club face is open, you don't want to rotate because you need time to square the club face.
Yeah.
So first you need to have the club face in a strong enough position to be able to rotate. But the other thing is that if you don't learn how to dissociate first, and you try to rotate, you're going to rotate all together. So you're going to end up coming more from the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if I tell you, and there's so much they can do at home. I know most people, if you're a high handicapper, it's because you don't have enough time to practice. But there's so much you can do, from little drills like turning, how to do this. Like I'm holding my shoulders, for the ones that are not seeing, I'm holding my shoulders still, and I'm just moving back and forth my hips, right? I can make my backswing, put my hands in a wall, and start moving my hips. It's only, 10 to 20 degrees, but I'm learning to fire my lower body, without actually changing my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
That's what good players do, and that's what allows me to have the club swinging from the inside with the lower part starting leading and opening. And it's that beautiful position that you see of the players with the right elbow, very close to their bodies. They're very open with their hips. That impact position that we all fall in love with. Well, it all starts in transition, being able to dissociate, the lower part with the upper part. Most golfers cannot do that. If you learn that, no way you can fix the slice if you don't know how to shift early, and if you don't know how to dissociate from the top of the backswing. Actually, good players fight the opposite.
Yeah,
they get trapped, call it that way. Like the hips are going too fast in comparison to the shoulders.
Tiger Woods called it his Olay move, where his hips would spin.
Yes.
That would be behind.
Yes.
Okay.
I remember that.
Lots of talk about pitching nowadays after Victor Hovland has changed his pitching game with Joe Mayo. What's your insight, for golfers? Just, something, just that chip shot around the greens. What's the key to success there?
Simple as it comes. You talk about Joe Mayo. He put some great videos about what he's working with Victor. Mm-hmm. I heard this from James Richard, another English coach, that he's actually helping us out with Nico Chavarria on the short game. Right. Another genius of the short game, just like Joe is. But I heard it from Jose Maria Olazabal many years ago. I used to work with, I still help him a little bit with Alvaro Quiros. He's a good friend of mine. And I spent a lot of time around Jose Maria. They spend a lot of practice round together and stuff, and I learned a lot of stuff.
If Jose Maria talks about chipping and pitching, I stop and I listen, because that man is like Jesus with a sand wedge in his head.
I have hours of videos recorded of him on the bunker and stuff. I gotta show them to you, but it's beautiful to watch. A lot of stuff he does, a lot of stuff he can explain. Other ones, they just do it. It's like Sevi, they don't know. You learn from watching more than from listening, but he has very clear concepts of what you need to do on chipping. Yeah. And one of them is that shift that Joe Mayo now is making popular towards the target on the backswing, mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. It's like, I am, call it 60% of my lead leg at address, and then while I'm taking the club back, there's a little bit shift of my whole body. Actually, even my head is moving, call it 2-3 inches to the left. Mm-hmm. So I'm basically moving the low point of the arc, my contact point, I'm moving it forward, correct? Mm-hmm. From that, I guarantee a good strike. But then on the downswing, they're kind of elevating their head or raising with their body to be able to move the whole arc up.
Yeah.
So if I don't have anything here, but if I have an arc, it's basically, this is the arc. They are on the backswing, they're moving it forward, and in the downswing, they're moving it up. Oh, right? So the club face
of your angels. That's why they hit those. They catch the groove low in the face, and that thing's coming out spinning. Jose Maria, I've seen that guy hit chip and pitch shots at Augusta National, where it's tight around the greens. He'd hit and he'd nip those things, and they'd hit and stop one time and then release like a putt. Just beautiful.
Yes. So basically, if I have to summarize it, it would be moving the arc forward on the backswing, and then they're moving kind of up. That's why the club face spends so much time very close to the ground. And that's what good players do. They can hit down on it, but with a very shallow angle of attack. If you would say the club is spending a lot of time brushing the ground. You can hit down without making a debut, right?
Yeah.
So here's the drill, Mark. Very simple. You grab balls with your hand. I want you to get into your position to chip.
Yes.
When you take the club back, just with the right hand, when you go to a backswing, I want you to step on your left. I want you to move your weight towards the target.
Okay.
And from there, you're just going to throw the ball, finishing with your chest facing the target. Simple as that. When we measure players with a 3D system and we ask the good pitchers, how does it feel? The moment in which they grow, the moment, the energy that moves the whole body towards the target is the exact same time as when they throw it with the right hand. So it will be shift left, throw the ball with the right hand. It will look something like this. Shift, throw, and finish there. Shift, throw, and finish there. And then you recreate that with the club, making sure that in your finish, you're going to finish. So you shift left, and you finish here with the bottom of the grip aiming at your stomach, right? With your chest and your hips facing the target. And your head is going to grow from here, impact, till the finish. Your head moves straight up. It's not this move. It's not backing up. Olazabal, I have videos, hours of him explaining how he feels like somebody is pulling from up here. Is this move right here, growing up.
Okay, I've got to say this. Folks not watching YouTube, you have to go and subscribe. Go and watch this. And then I will say this too, because for the longest time, and it made my hair on the back of my neck stand on end, where people are like, well, you don't use your arms, you just turn your body. And people would never land the club properly. But the funny thing is, because people will go, well, Hernan's lifting or raising up his head. Well, that comes from pushing the legs. And when you do that, that actually helps them to hit the ground more just because of physics. The more you try to keep your head down, the more you're going to dig the club in the ground and then have to flick it to not fat it.
100%, Mark. Like you know, I think keep your eyes on the ball is creating more problems for people than what they think. Actually, I think most of good chippers, they lose sight of the ball right before impact, I would say. You know, I don't think they, and who was it that I heard the other day? It's like, if you're going to keep the eye on the ball, well, you know, follow the ball once it's moving too, you know? Like,
well, the truth is,
keep it there.
People don't realize it, but your eyes actually blink when you strike the ball. It's just an eye protection mechanism. But that's for a different podcast. All right.
You're going to make people think too much now.
I've got you for too long. The bunker tip, they can go and watch on your Instagram account. So I just want to say this. Please share for the folks the website, where they can find you, social media, all that sort of stuff, Hernan.
Hernan Rey Golf. That's my Instagram. That's my Twitter account. So HERNAN and then REY. REY. So Hernan Rey Golf. They can find me over there. If they want to learn some good tips, happy to have them as followers there and talk about golf.
And you got a golf academy down in the Orlando area?
Yes, we have an academy, Hernan Rey Golf Academy, also in Orlando. So everybody's welcome to come and take some lessons, talk golf, have a good time, Mark, including you. Anytime you're around, you know, happy to have you here and extend the conversation.
Sounds awesome, my friend. I so appreciate you joining us, and thanks for sharing all the insights. And you can text me those Jose Maria videos when you get a chance.
I'll send them to you, no doubt about it. Thank you so much for your time and the invitation.